Welcome to the Alouettes Flightdeck, podcast dedicated to Montreal Alouettes football. I am Tim Capper. You can find me on X, formerly Twitter, at Repact. That's REPPACT.
And I'm Cliffy D. You can also find me on Twix, but at Cliffy D. And this episode of the Alouettes Flightdeck podcast is presented by our good friends over at SportBuff, where if you use the promo code ALSFlightDeck10 at checkout, you will save 10% off your entire order. Head on over to www.sportbuffshop.com for all of your sporting needs. And as always, be sure to support local.
Have you missed any of the episodes of the Alouettes Flightdeck podcast? Well, no need to worry. You can head over to our archive and catch all 7+ seasons of our show, and that's at alouettesflightdeck.ca. You can also find us on Twitter /X at AlouettesFLDeck, Facebook over at Alouettes Flightdeck Pod, Instagram at Alouettes Flightdeck, YouTube, which is hosting our Flight Deck Lives each week along with our Twitter account. So you need to stay tuned for all of our socials to find out when we're going live after each and every game. But that's youtube.com/Alouettes Flightdeck. And then we're looking to rep some merch for the Flight Deck. Well, we have a couple of things for you. First, you can head over to our store at teespring.com/stores/AlsFlightDeck. And currently now, and we'll explain a little bit later, there is a promo code for you, the fans, until September 30th, Cliff. That's right. I said September 30th. If you use the code TGiving23, you will save 10% off your entire order. So you can get, I don't know, a T-shirt that has the Flight Deck logo, a T-shirt that has the Cartoon Bird 56 logo. Anything that you want that you want to rep the podcast, it is currently there. So again, that promo code until September 30th is TGiving23.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, you mentioned before about SportBuff. I didn't want to interrupt you while you were doing the scripting there, but can't forget that the CFL has put out their new Turf Traditions line for 2023, and Chris and Gary over at SportBuff, they currently do have some of the caps that are available.
Mm-hmm.
So again, head over to SportBuff shop and use that code.
Listen, that's what the promo code's there for, folks. You want to save some money, that's the way to do it. I mean, of course, you could definitely get the Turf Traditions gear at the next home game, which is this coming Saturday versus the BC Lions. I have no doubt in my mind that they're going to be selling a lot of gear there. You can also get it on the Alouettes website if your heart desires. I think it's boutique.montrealalouettes.com. So there you go, free plug for them. Mm-hmm. I gotta say, like it's really nice, some of this stuff. Once again, the Alouettes going retro using the French horn logo, which I've always liked that logo, and I make no bones about it. It is definitely an amazing logo, and the use of red and green, like they did back in the late '60s, early '70s, outstanding stuff. You love to see it, you really do. I mean, as much as people say, this current uniform is the best one out there, and okay, it's got its place. There's no question about that. There's just something about like that classic Alouettes look. I mean, that it looks like a bird. It looks like Montreal. I mean, that's the thing with the French horn logo is it looks like Montreal. And even though green isn't typically one of the Alouettes colors, in this instance, it looks so good. And by all means, folks, if you're feeling that retro vibe, if you're feeling nostalgic for days gone by, make sure you get to the game this Saturday, or head on over to the website and make sure you snap up all of the Turf Traditions gear.
Yeah. Before we get to the debacle that was the Als Winnipeg game, it's been dude. It's been a week. It's almost been a week since we've had this game, and we've been having to sit on this thing. But
yeah, we did cover a little bit of it on Flight Deck Live, but yeah, we've been sitting stewing in our own juices regarding this game.
Yeah, but we wanted to announce something first, and it sort of goes to what I was saying earlier about the about the new promo code for our shop is that we're trying something new. We are going to have a fan. What am I calling it? A fan meetup.
Yes.
A fan meetup on Thanksgiving Monday, over in the same area where they have the tailgating, and specific location will be put out on social media once we figure out all the logistics. But what we are trying to do is, as everybody knows, that the Cartoon Bird 56 t-shirt has become our best seller ever in the history of the podcast and our store. Mm-hmm. What we would love to do, Cliff, is to be able to take a group photo with all of our fans who currently happen to own the shirt.
Yes.
Just something, take a photo for posterity's sake.
Definitely. And again, Thanksgiving, I mean, we tend to associate it with turkeys, which is a bird. The cartoon bird is not a turkey, but it's still a bird. It's still worthy of celebration. So I sincerely hope that everyone who has purchased one of these shirts, and if you have, thank you very much. We truly do appreciate the support. If you're coming to the game on Thanksgiving Monday, please, by all means, come with your shirt and come be a part of this this meetup. Come be a part of this group photo. I mean, I would love nothing more than be able to post on Thanksgiving Monday a big photo with a huge following, if you will, a flock, if you will, of Cartoon Bird 56s. I guess that's how you would pluralize it.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
So again, folks, if you are planning to be at the Thanksgiving Day game in Montreal, definitely come out to the tailgate. Definitely come find us. We're going to make ourselves as visible as possible. Just, I mean, again, if you've seen the Cartoon Bird 56 shirt, you know what it looks like. So come on out and be a part of this as well. We'd love to have you. We'd love to see as many people there rocking that shirt as possible. And yeah, I think a group photo with a whole bunch of us wearing that shirt would just be absolutely amazing.
Yeah, so we have set it for, and it's currently over on our Facebook page, the event. It's set for Monday, October 9th. It's going to be from 10:30 to 12 a.m., so it gives everybody enough time to do a little bit of tailgating and do what they need to do before the game kicks off at 1. So again, we offered the promo code of TGiving23. Head over to the shop. We'd love to see you guys purchase one of the shirts and join us. We got some other ideas too. We are looking at the potential of a raffle, where all proceeds would go to the Alouettes Foundation, and that would be of one of our remaining Delta satin jackets. Those infamous Delta satin jackets. But we're looking at that, and we're looking at seeing if there's other things that we can do. So stay tuned to all of our socials and to keep more information on what we're going to do. And we hope to see you guys there. So it's what better way to get together with the entire flight deck crew, flight crew, and just to see everybody on Thanksgiving. So, all right, let's get to it.
Yeah. As I said, we've been sitting on this for a couple of days, and I don't think a lot of our feeling has changed on it. Like, how sometimes you say things in the heat of the moment, and you're pissed off, and you want, you're like, what the hell's going on? Your emotions are all out of whack, and you think, okay, you know what, just leave it alone. Give it a couple of days. Maybe your thoughts will change on this. Maybe it won't seem so bad. Maybe, this wasn't such a terrible thing. But when I look at a final score of 47-17 for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and I look at some of the stats as a result of that absolute beatdown, it's hard to find positive. It's hard to feel like anything good could come of it. So I say we just kind of have like a little group therapy session right now, and let's just get out all of our anger, get out all of our frustration over this, and at that point we just burn the tape and move on. I know the Alouettes have, by and large, pretty much burned the tape and move on from this, but I think now it's our turn.
Yeah, yeah. I remember. Yeah, just it was tough talking about it during Flight Deck Live. It's just still either way. You talk about the score itself, Cliff. The Alouettes lose by 30 plus points for the first time since June 28th, 2019, and that's when we got shellacked at Hamilton, 41-10. This to me is the game itself, Cliff. And I'm sure you'll agree. Is that the Alouettes got shut out in the second half for the first time since November 19th, 2021 versus Ottawa, and that was the home finale back in 2021, by the way, where the Owls lost to the Red Blacks. Let's see. Let's just get all the negatives out of here. 1 first down in the second half. You heard me right, ladies and gentlemen. It hadn't been for that late push in the fourth quarter, we would have had none. And how many total yards, Cliff, did we have in the second half? A grand total of 21.
Yeesh.
Hence, look at that score. Now, and I think what made it hurt even more is, and to me this is big because obviously it leads into our upcoming matchup versus the BC Lions at home this week, is the people that got hurt. And one of those guys that got hurt, and it looks like he will not be playing this week, basically started off the game, the first half that we were looking for. Started it off on the very first play, and that's former number 1 pick Tyrell Richards, who had his very first pick 6.
He sure did. First play of the game, no less. I mean, you want to talk about what should have been a tone setter right there?
Should have been. Mm-hmm.
I mean, and it's so funny, too, because Zach Caleros had come off the injured list. He missed the last couple of games, too, due to injury. And you knew that he wanted to prove that, okay, there's no rust. There's nothing like that. He's ready to, take back his starting position and to, be flushed out of the pocket and to throw a pick 6 right into the hands of Tyrell Richards, who just, ducked and weaved and just took it all the way to the house. I was like, wow, like, I was excited, of course. We're big fans of Tyrell's, and to see something like that, it was like, holy crap. Like, literally the first play of the game, the first offensive play of the game for the Bombers is a pick 6. Wow. Like that, again, this is one of the top tier teams, a team that arguably is the best in the CFL. And that's their first play is to throw a pick 6. Oh my, that was just... At that point, you're like, oh my gosh, wow, you're just at a loss for words. Like, and so happy for Tyrell because I mean, the kid's worked his ass off at battling injury during his first year last year, and the week before in Ottawa, he had his first fumble recovery, forced fumble and fumble recovery. That was pretty exciting. Like that's pretty good. That we were excited for him there. Like, oh, what? I think I even jokingly said to him, like, what do you do for an encore? I'm like, well, now we know. A pick 6. I mean, that's a great way to top it as far as I'm concerned. So, I mean, that, like I said, just absolute excitement for Tyrell. And at that point, you thought, okay, Montreal came to play. They are ready. They're ready to rock. This is going to be fun. And then the game continued.
Yeah, well, no, the first half was very entertaining, I will admit. It was back and forth, and it just has to at least mention that Tyrell looked to be a casualty of friendly fire in the fourth quarter, had to be carted off. Got some information this week that it was not as bad as they expected, so he looks like he's going to be on a game-to-game basis. Interesting comments from head coach Jason Moss about Tyrell. Something to the effect, Cliff, that it's something that he's going to have to get used to for the rest of the season. I'm thinking, vague, but what the hell does that mean? I had no clue what that meant. Maybe a brace. Maybe, I don't know. It's all speculation because, as we've talked about before in the past, is that the coach he's gotten very good at saying something without saying something.
Yeah, and I can't help but wonder if he was thinking about last year. Cody Fajardo was dealing with knee issues and had to wear a brace as well. And I don't know if that's what Coach Moss was alluding to, or maybe making reference to, is the fact that he's kind of seen this before with one of his top players, dealing with a potential injury, and hopefully. Again, we obviously hope that Tyrell has a speedy recovery and that the Alouettes will give him the chance to properly recuperate, and seriously hope this is just like a week-to-week thing and not anything that could become worse. And I want to believe the Alouettes will not put Tyrell in a position to aggravate that injury even further. Like, if he can't go, then he can't go. So be it. But, I hope he takes it upon himself to ensure that he does everything, whatever it's going to take for him to get back on the field, but in a stronger, healthier way, like not rush anything back. I think that's going to be key. And I think the Alouettes kind of realize that as well. They realize how important this young man is to this defense now, not just on special teams like he started the year off on, but now he was actually becoming an integral part of this defense. And the proof was in the pudding. I mean, the past 2 games, he had 2 outstanding turnover-related plays.
Yeah.
And this is what you want to see out of him. This is why you make him a first overall draft pick. But as far as his evolution and his development goes, I mean, this is unfortunately just another bump in the road for him. Just like the injury bug that hit him last year, I just hope that he just comes back stronger than ever. And it sounds like it's not as severe as previously feared, and I sincerely hope that's the case. At this point, all we can do is just hope that he's back sooner rather than later, but not rushed back as a result.
Exactly. And obviously the other outstanding play for the Alouettes was the Alouettes' second touchdown, interception return for a touchdown on a beautiful play by Marc-Antoine Ducroix. It was around 2:30 of the second quarter. And it put the Owls up at that time, 17-14. And again, the defense again was keeping this team in the game despite all the other obstacles. But again, this first half was just a back and forth thing. No team could keep any momentum. None at all. That was, and just a case of that is with the Blue Bombers basically answering that touchdown with their own right before halftime. So but still, what a play by Ducroix.
Yeah, and funny thing, that was his second interception of the game. Like, he had another one previous to that, which saved a touchdown, a potential Bombers touchdown.
Yep.
So that was pretty good. And once again, it comes back to, okay, well, how do you top that? Well, with a pick six, of course. And it's incredible. If for that first half, it felt like Marc-Antoine Ducroix was living rent-free in Zach Collaros' head.
Yeah.
And one had to wonder, like, oh, maybe Zach was being rushed back too quickly. Maybe he's, been, maybe there's. Well, it's hard. It's hard to say. I mean, it's really hard to say what he was thinking of, what was going through his head during that first half, but. Obviously, second half, that's when teams make adjustments. We talked about how the Alouettes are one of the best, if not the best team at making adjustments in the second half. Clearly, Winnipeg is pretty good at it too, because I think they actually got scared a little bit. I think they realized, we're letting these guys hang around. Like, we're supposed to be better than them. And then finally, that second half, they got their ass in gear. Calero got his ass in gear, and they started playing like the Winnipeg Blue Bombers that we've come to expect over the past few seasons. And it was almost like they wanted to make Montreal pay for embarrassing them. And boy, they sure did.
Yeah. With the 2 INTs returned for touchdowns, it was the first time that has occurred in Montreal Canadian pro football history since August 4th, 1984, when it was the Montreal Concords, Cliff, who did it versus the Calgary Stampeders, and before that it was they had it done back in 1960. So it had been a while, and 2 different teams, team names since Montreal Pro Football had done that. So the first again, and also they were shooting themselves. Besides the positive with these that the defense was showing in that first half, again. penalties rear their ugly head, and the problem is, though, Cliff, is that it was the first half which really killed them. And it's kind, you know, what's funny? It kind of set the tone for the second half, and just just how horrible that it was. I mean, they had eight penalties at halftime, Cliff, for 81 yards.
Yeah, and Chandler Worthy would take the ball on returns, and he'd get the Alouettes great field position, but then you saw the yellow flag, and it was like, oh crap! It was a holding, illegal block in the back, you name it. There was any number of penalties that were called, and all that great progress wiped back, and then you tack on anywhere from 10 to 15 yards on top of that. So Fajardo in the offense starting in a hole immediately. After Chandler Worthy did all that hard work to get the Alouettes in decent field position, it's gone in a flash. And Cody Fajardo just has to start, working extra hard to try and get the Alouettes closer into the scoring position. And unfortunately, he try as they might, the Alouettes offense just wasn't clicking at all in Winnipeg.
No, not at all. I mean, of the total penalties that day, I mean, the Owls did have 13 for 142. Now, to be fair, they had quite a few for Winnipeg, too. I mean, Winnipeg, 18 for 187. Excuse me. Sorry, they only had 5 for 45. I was reading the totals there. Sorry. Again, special teams coverage and return coverage they accounted for 7 of them. And one that was very egregious that you and I really do not agree with was that phantom DPI call. It was in the fourth quarter on the Alouettes.
Yes.
Which was, I'm sorry. That was, I mean, yes, we couldn't challenge because, we'd gotten one right and anyways, but that wasn't necessary. That wasn't necessary. But I mean, it's, again, it set the stage for that horrible second half. And it ended, and I ranted about this before. I'm curious to know your thoughts of basically this being completely Bush League in, Winnipeg challenging a play when they're up by 30 points in the fourth quarter. I'm sorry, Michael Shea. Yeah, that's Bush League completely because there was no point. There's no point in having that. It was already rubbed in enough. You go and you do this. Yes, I understand that they got the play, but still, I gave Coach Moss, if I remember correctly, was it Coach Moss that I gave to when he did this? I'd have to go back and check my social media, but I think I gave somebody the gears also for trying this. It was in another CFL game when they were up by 30. You don't do that. You really don't. And I think you mentioned to me it's not a divisional game. So why does it matter? What does it matter?
Yeah, I even tried to say the reason why O'Shea probably did that was, as a show of support for his players, which I get and I can appreciate that to a degree. But you're right. When you're up by 30 and you're challenging stuff like that, I mean, that, again, I said it during the Flight Deck Live. Coach O'Shea is better than that. I want to believe he's better than that. Like, what were you hoping to accomplish? Like, to rub salt further into the wound? Was this like revenge because Marc-Antoine Dequoy and Tyrell Richards scored pick sixes on your precious offense? Like, come on, like that. It was just. Like I said, we're still bitter about that, folks. There's no question about that.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. It's Bush. It's Bush League. It really is.
And what I still don't understand, I still have not gotten an answer to this, and I probably never will. Rashid Bailey, the recipient of said, or the beneficiary, I should say, of said DPI penalty, he made the motion, the calling for a flag motion, which is objectionable conduct. You're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to have a signal of some sort to say to the bench, "Hey, challenge that because something's wrong," or take another look at it. Like you can do that. You can make some sort of thing, but you can't do the actual, throwing your hands as though you're calling for a flag. You can't do that. That's supposed to be objectionable conduct and a penalty in the Canadian Football League. And referees turned a blind eye to it. Didn't seem to notice or didn't seem to care. Probably because, interestingly enough, the Alouettes are losing by 30. So what difference does it make? Like, well, one could argue, what difference does this DPI penalty make? I mean, really? I mean,
yeah.
It just left a really bitter taste in the mouth. And I will say karma does have a funny way of coming back to people on things like that. And if you want to call it sour grapes on our part, folks, by all means, go ahead. But really, truly, just be thankful, as we said. This is good. Be glad this wasn't a divisional game. Could you imagine if this was going on during, say, the Labor Day Classic or the Banjo Bowl against the Rough Riders? Oh, man.
Yeah.
You'd be seeing torches and pitchforks big time out of Satsky fans.
Be crucified. Be crucified.
You need security detail to get the hell out of Regina.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, I think that call was done and then overturned by J.R. Reed. If I'm not mistaken, he was the Owls defender on that play. I think he made a great. Again, some of the penalties I felt that were very ticky tacky, but I mean, again, you know what? We got blown out. We just pure, unadulterated blown out. I mean, it's done. It's just look at the stats alone, dude. I mean, Fajardo was 14 of 25 for 137 and interception, no touchdowns. Our huge plus of potentially having the three-headed monster this week really didn't amount to anything at all. I mean, Stamek had 32 yards on 8 rushes. Fletcher had 12 yards on 3 rushes. Nothing. They were in it in the first half. It's just that they couldn't do garbage all in the second. And you were only down by 3 at halftime.
Well, that's it. And this is what we talked about again, the halftime adjustments. Like, I had to believe, okay, you're only down by 3, okay, and you're playing a very competitive football game against a very good football team. Like, okay, then this should set up for a very exciting second half of football. And it just felt like the offense stayed in the dressing room. Like, nothing doing. Like, Fajardo couldn't get anything set.
Yeah, maybe they forgot that the weather delay was before kickoff of at the beginning of the game rather than the second half.
Maybe, because this was just yikes. I mean, and 2 and out, or interception. I mean, it was just awful, and giving the Bombers excellent field position every single time. It was, again, Zach Caleros is going to take advantage of that all day long. Brady Oliveira, he went off.
Yeah, we couldn't do anything. And
you couldn't. This guy was like AJ Ouellette. You couldn't. It's like tackling a bowling ball. You just couldn't get a hold of this dude. And like I jokingly call him Brady Olive Oil because he's slick as hell. You can't grab this guy. And then Dalton Shawn, Drew Wolotarski, Nick Dembski. Again, he missed the first Alouettes game in Montreal because his wife was giving birth, and part of me felt like, okay, I want to show up these clowns too, and he sure did. I mean, my goodness, it was not pretty, folks. If you're an Alouettes fan, and I did see a lot of Alouettes Nation on social media where it's like, yeah, I'm out. Click, turn off the TV. Find something else to do. This ain't it. This ain't it.
Which, to be fair, I wanted to do too, but being the professional that I am, I had to watch it.
Yep, to the bitter end.
Leading receiver for the Alouettes was Austin Mack with 55 yards on 5 receptions. After that, it was Tyson Philpott, which had a pretty good game. Early concussion protocol that he went through in the first half, but he ended up with 4 receptions for 36 yards. Tyler Snead also got in on it with 21 yards. Others were negligible. Walter Fletcher with 6. James Tuck with 4. Kevin Kaya with 5. Again, the Blue Bombers did what they had to do. I mean, 240 yards from Zach Caleros, 119 from Brady Oliveira. And it was Nick Dembski who led the team with 87 yards. But obviously, the 2 touchdown went to Dalton Schoen. So, we talked about already about about T-Rich. the problem is too is that besides what happened to Tyson early in the game, more bitter taste in the mouth when it looks like I don't know what's happening because he hasn't practiced yet this week or he's been very limited. Austin Mack came up a little bit lame. We don't know if it was an ankle or an upper leg. We're not sure, but he was able to shake it off once. And by the end of the game, I don't think he showed up at all was he there at all in the second half?
He was, and we actually, that's where we saw at one point he was favoring it looked like his ankle or his shin, and like definitely the lower leg, no matter however you want to phrase it. But and I think the Alouettes were smart to say, okay, this game is clearly out of reach. Don't even bother putting Mac out there. And I think I want to believe that's all it was just self-preservation, and there's no sense trying to aggravate it or make things worse. Just leave it alone and live to fight another day. And I think that's the smart way to go when it comes to something like that, especially too with one of the league leaders in receptions in Austin Mack and one of your premier players.
Yeah.
Why put him in harm's way? So you know what? Tonight's not the night. It happens. Let it go. Just keep him on the sidelines and keep him ready for this Saturday's game versus the BC Lions.
The other big one that really hurts on defense is the loss of Wesley Sutton. We don't know what's going on. It's listed as a head injury, I think. We really weren't able to tell from the actual play itself, but we know he most likely is not going to play this week.
Yeah, although same idea is that they're not going to 6-game him, or at least not yet.
Yeah, you heard that comment too, didn't you?
Mm-hmm.
That was an interesting comment that was made by Coach Moss. It's like, how did he put it? If the doctors don't think he needs to go on 6-game, then we won't put him on 6-game.
Right.
I'm paraphrasing. If you need to see it, guys, go head over to the Alouettes YouTube page, and it was there from Monday. Tuesday. Tuesday is a press scrum.
Yeah. So again, obviously we can't afford to lose a talent like Wesley Sutton. There's no question about that. So same thing with Tyrell Richards. Hopefully it doesn't sound like it's as severe as it maybe could or should have been. And all we can do is just hope once again for a speedy recovery for Wesley as well, because the Alouettes are that much better with him on the field versus off.
Yeah. Now, when the Alouettes did make a change after it was well over, they brought in Davis Alexander. Now, my thought to you, Cliff, is this, and my question to you is also, why did they not make a change sooner? And why was it Davis Alexander, when we had a guy who had just won 2 straight games for the Alouettes?
Yeah, one would say go with the hot hand, and Caleb Evans definitely would have been the hot hand. Maybe not, maybe some people wouldn't think it was hot despite the fact beating a ill-prepared Saskatchewan team and just barely beating the Ottawa Red Blacks, who are in a bit of a free fall. But by and large, Caleb Evans would have been the guy to go to. And I wouldn't have been mad to see even sort of a kind of a hybrid scenario where you ease Fajardo back in slowly. Like, obviously this is still Cody Fajardo's team, and it is
right
until he's injured. But at the same time too, especially when you saw those first couple of series where it just wasn't clicking, it wasn't working.
Yeah, we need to spark something.
Yeah, just throw them, and they clearly were prepared for Fajardo. I don't think they even considered the possibility that Caleb Evans might even see some action. Why not take advantage of that and let him get in there for a couple of series and try to shake things up? Maybe, if only to keep the Bombers' defense guessing. But it felt like they knew exactly what they were getting in Fajardo, and they were able to counteract and just they made his life a living hell this last Thursday. At that point, switch things up. It's not the end of the world. I don't think it wouldn't be a reflection on Fajardo either, to tell you the truth. I mean, listen, the guy missed the last couple of games. I'm sure a little bit of rust is formed. I mean, that was obviously the concern with Caleros as well, especially after he threw 2 picks.
Mm-hmm.
Did they rush him back? Is he back too soon? Can he get his act together? And the answer was yes, he did in a big way. But okay, that's Zach Caleros, though. I mean, he's back-to-back MOP, one of the premier quarterbacks in this league. That's one thing. Fajardo, still a very good quarterback, still someone that you can count on, and he's got that warrior mentality. Like he's, you're gonna have to drag him off the field kicking and screaming, but at the same time, like maybe just after those first couple of series weren't working, maybe just for the sake of sparking something, like you said, put Caleb Evans in there or Davis Alexander and let them try something. At least give a couple different looks and just keep this Bombers defense on its heels. To go with Fajardo, like after like 2-and-out, pick, 2-and-out, pick. Like what was the point? And yeah, by the time they put Davis Alexander in for quote unquote mop duty or garbage time, whatever you want to call it, it was just like, okay, well, is this really doing anything for Davis as well? Kind of like, well, this game's out of reach, so here, take the ball, try not to up on this.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Is that really the thought behind it? Like, and if so, that's really doing a disservice to Davis Alexander and his potential development, and also too, it just really screams, okay, we have given up. Well, I mean, they probably said that after the third quarter. It was pretty much we've given up, but still, it was just. It's not the way I would have done it, but again, I guess that's why I'm sitting on the couch watching the game, and these guys are out in Winnipeg being a part of the game.
So. Yeah, it was just a spark. I mean, third quarter alone, dude. I mean, we had 3 plays for 4 yards, and we had 2 plays for 5, which ended in that interception with a pass that basically floated into Winston Rose's hands. I mean, it was ridiculous. Ridiculous. Why? It was the second time of the night that Fajardo made that type of pass. He got away with it once. This time he did not. And then we had our next drive was 3 plays for negative 14 yards. Because the weird fumble by the shotgun snap, which I don't understand, but I understand it happens.
Shades of Henry Burris in the 2013 Grey Cup. Just whoop, right by him. Jeez.
So yeah, I again, and then the joke of a fourth quarter that we had.
Yeah, it was just a comedy of errors, to put it lightly, that second half for the Alouettes, and it was just unfortunate. I mean, after having that hope that, okay, this team is at least in the game, only down by 3 at the half. Like, okay, there's something here. There's something to be excited about. And then you turn in this absolute, stinker of a second half. And it's easy to see why so many Alouettes fans are just like, all right, I'm out. And just whatever. Like, and I won't say this was a game that the Alouettes had to win, but this is a game that if they found a way to win, or at least if they're going to lose and be competitive about it, at least it gets people talking, because the big narrative right now is this notion of top tier teams, and the Alouettes are currently the best of the second tier, and they just can't break through that glass ceiling. They can't seem to join the club that the Toronto Argonauts and the Winnipeg Blue Bombers are a part of, and to a lesser extent the BC Lions. How do you do that? Like, these are games you have to really get people talking about this team and really believing in them. You got to be able to get a win off of one of these top tier teams, and it won't be Winnipeg this year unless somehow it's a Bombers Alouettes Grey Cup, which could still theoretically happen. But after seeing what we saw the 2 regular season games, well, I mean,
yeah,
I don't know if I really want to see Winnipeg in the Grey Cup game.
Yeah, I know. But it is what it is. We've got to move on. Obviously, we've got BC coming up this week. To me, which I've already told you off air, to me it is a must-win game. It's better for the Alouettes to be 7-5, and then and 7. No, is that, yeah? They would be, or 6-6. Yeah. So to me, it's a must-win. But we'll get to that in a minute. A couple of things we want to talk about, team news and stuff like that, Cliff? Because obviously it's leading into who will be on the sidelines for the Alouettes for the game versus BC this week. And unfortunately, that's not going to be hurting my alley, is it?
Unfortunately not. And it's kind of funny because when we talk about like some of the major plays throughout the game for the offense for the Alouettes last Thursday, 3rd and 2, Fajardo decides to heave a bomb to Hergy, And unfortunately, it was a beautiful pass. Like Fajardo couldn't have thrown it any better. Unfortunately, though, Hergy, I think he took his eyes off for just a split second, and it was just enough for him. Like I think he was kind of looking towards the end zone just a little bit, and the ball literally flew through his hands. Like he couldn't grab it, he couldn't tighten, he couldn't wrap his hands around it, and just incomplete.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, that leads to a turnover on downs. And I'm like, oh no, like that catch, would it have made a difference? Possibly, possibly not. I mean, at that point, I mean that was
we're talking spark.
Well, yeah. I mean, you never know though. That's the thing. That could have been the TSN turning point, as we say. But instead, it's just another, unfortunate footnote of that terrible, terrible game. And a lot of people were thinking, well, is that the reason why he got released? And no, I don't think that was the reason he got released. Not for one play like that. I think it was just. I mean, it could be any number of reasons. I mean, especially letting go of a national talent is always a tough call to make, and a Montreal native too. Mm-hmm. But one thing you'll see with the Alouettes, I mean, I still remember people like during the first part of his tenure as Alouettes GM, people were giving Danny Machocha the gears regarding. Well, it seems like if you were a Quebec-born player, you're going to be a part of the Alouettes in some way, shape, or form, and it really felt like that. Like whether it was drafting Quebec-born players or signing Quebec-born players, it felt like Machocha was trying to do everything to give every Quebecer a job with the Alouettes, and Hergy Mailala would have been no exception to that rule as well. But Machocha is also not afraid to let people go, even if they are Quebec-born players. If you're not producing, if he doesn't think it's a good fit, he's not afraid to show you the door. And in this case, even though Mailala made that absolutely incredible catch in Ottawa that essentially led to the go-ahead and eventual winning touchdown to beat the Red Blacks, we were so happy for him too. I remember we saw him after the game in Ottawa, and the look of joy on his face was indescribable. I mean, just like he couldn't believe how open he was. And okay, we just figured, okay, this is what Hergy does. He makes that incredible play out of nowhere, like kind of works in silence, but when you need him, he's there. And maybe it just wasn't enough. Maybe just, those occasional out of nowhere plays just wasn't enough for the Alouettes, and they decided to show him the door. And it's unfortunate because we've had him on the show. He's definitely a great guy. We were very happy to see him come back after trying out for the USFL, and it didn't go anywhere there. We were thrilled to see him come back in time for training camp and be a part of this team, and truly thought he was going to be here for a good long time. But that's the thing about football, folks. We say it all the time. Everybody loves football. Football loves nobody.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, Hergy is the latest in any number of players that have come through here and been out the door that happen to be Quebec natives. And just because you're a Quebec native doesn't mean you're going to be guaranteed your spot on this roster. So obviously, we wish Hergy all the best going forward. He will not be out of work long. That I can assure you.
Yeah.
Someone is going to need a talented national receiver, and Hergy definitely is that all day long.
Yeah. So after we hear that about Hergy, and we found out a little bit more about guys that are practicing for the first time in quite a while. We happen to hear that free agent pickup Greg Ellingson is finally off. The sixth game, has been practicing all week, and it looks like it is very possible that he will make his Alouettes debut versus the BC Lions. And also, we may have some help back in the backfield. It looks like Ciante Evans is coming off the sixth game and looks like will be active. Obviously, this is leading up to whenever the depth charts are released by the team. But still, again, I'm curious to see what Ellingson can do. He does have a hell of a pedigree. Such a great history in the CFL, but it's a help for this team considering that there's a very big potential that Osamac may not go, and some of these other guys are going to have to step up. So,
Well, and he's a veteran presence, and I think that's why the Alouettes have been keeping him around despite his injury woes and whatnot. Like because again, they could have let him go too. Uh, they obviously see something in him. I think they still see the potential of him being a contributor on this in this receiving core, and I would love to see that too. I mean, I don't think we're going to get the Greg Ellingson that dazzled everybody while he was with the Hamilton Tiger Cats, that won a Grey Cup with the Ottawa Red Blacks. Just making outstanding plays, pretty much wherever he went. And now is his opportunity to be able to do that with the Montreal Alouettes. And I sincerely hope he gets a chance to prove himself. Will he be that, that outstanding receiver that we've come to expect? Only time's going to tell. But I'm definitely curious to see if he can actually get into this lineup and if he can contribute, help Cody Fajardo by getting open. I mean, I still think there's something there with him. I would love to see it. It's just a matter of getting it on the field, and hopefully it's not as a result of Austin Mack being too banged up to play, because I mean Austin Mack we know is just a phenomenal talent that is just getting better with each and every game. But maybe it might be time to go to the old steady hand of Greg Ellingson. Let's see if he still has some of that magic that he had from years before. Gotta make him sound so old, but I mean,
what's funny is I can go back farther than you, and you know that when it comes to Greg Ellingson. So
that's it. Like we're not trying to age. We're not trying to age him. I promise.
Yeah,
but,
his pre-CFL days. So yeah. Oh, by the way, correction. Currently, the Owls are 6-4. Obviously, we don't want them to go. We would rather them go 7-4 rather than 6-5. So, just want to make a quick correction there.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. Like nobody in the East is ready to clinch a playoff spot yet, despite the fact that Toronto Argonauts have been playing some pretty outstanding football.
That's so weird, eh? That's weird in itself.
It is, but it's funny because like right now, like Montreal, they got to try and hang with Toronto. I think. I won't say they've left Ottawa and Hamilton in the dust, but I mean, 4 of those 6 wins did come against those 2 teams. So I mean, the Alouettes have done a very good job of playing very well within their division, but they got to be able to do something against Toronto. They got to be able to steal. There's a back-to-back series coming up in September. The Alouettes have to find a way to win at least one of those 2 games if they want to have any chance of winning this division, or even securing that home playoff game, with a second place finish again. You got to win games like that. You've got to beat these top tier teams. Unfortunately, couldn't do it against Winnipeg, but you've got a chance. You still got a chance to do it against Toronto. You got a chance to do it against BC. Like this is the time to do it. Like a lot of people were saying, this is going to be a tough stretch for the Alouettes, playing Winnipeg, BC, and a back-to-back against Toronto. It's tough. I agree 100% it's tough, but you've got to find a way to win games like this, like against opponents like this. And hopefully it starts on Saturday. Hopefully, they pay BC back for that whooping they got out at BC Place earlier this year.
I know.
If they can do that.
If I remember correct, they came back from being shellacked. It's one stat I need to look up is when the Alouettes lose by 30 plus, what is their record the following game?
That's it. I mean, hopefully they're pissed off. Hopefully they're embarrassed by the effort they put out in Winnipeg, and they just go and take it out on the BC Lions, who they too are starting to falter. Like they're starting to look like maybe they're not exactly a top tier team either. I still think they are, quite frankly, but I mean, they too have lost to Saskatchewan and Hamilton of all teams. I mean, we were talking about just how bad things are in Hamilton recently, and Hamilton finds a way to corral the Lions and humble them. So, I mean, I got a feeling that Vernon Adams and company are going to come into this game just a little bit pissed off as well and want to take things out. And it felt like earlier this year, like if you got your ass handed to you by a team and you're playing the Alouettes next week, you're just going to take it out on them. And my concern is that just maybe, Vernon Adams and company are going to want to take out their frustration of this 2-game losing streak on the Alouettes. But you've also got the Alouettes now that were absolutely embarrassed by the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. They got to be a little bit pissed off too. So you could be looking at 2 very pissed off teams this rivalry rivalry weekend. Ooh, that was a tongue twister.
I know. There is a lot more to this game too, man. I mean, it's first. We were dreading this when we first saw it, and the team announced it. This was originally scheduled as their whiteout game. Lo and behold, today on social media, they announce that this is going to be a redout game. They haven't really officially named it a redout game, but the Alouettes will be wearing their new third alternate their new jerseys, their new red jerseys this week again. And both you and I agreed, talking about this off air before we began the show, we want to see the uniform combo of the red jerseys and the Alouettes blue pants. Specifically considering the type of weekend that it is, try to mimic the old Delta logo uniforms as much as possible, and that would be the best way to do it. But people are saying, "Well, Tim, what do you I've not been really following the team. What are you talking about when it comes to mimicking, the Delta logo? Why? Why would you want to do that?" Well, this just happens to be also the Hall of Fame day, Owls alumni Hall of Fame game. I'm trying to I don't know how do we mention this, because I mean, during this game itself, the Owls will be honoring 4 of the 5 Owls legends who this year are being inducted into the Canadian Football Hall of Fame. John Bowman, Josh Bork, Larry Smith, and Jacques Doucet will be on hand. And they're going to, as I mentioned, I think last episode, they're going to be doing this up big for them at halftime.
I would call it a Hall of Fame celebration game, because they technically they haven't been inducted in the Hall of Fame yet. That's actually happening on September 15th in Hamilton. But yes, they are going to be celebrating these gentlemen for their absolutely outstanding accomplishment.
Oh, I'm sorry, and I don't like doing this, but I'm going to tease it anyways. Stay tuned for next week's episode, where we may have the opportunity of speaking with one of these future inductees into the Canadian Football Hall of Fame. That's all I'll say. You'll have to stay tuned for the next episode.
That's it. I mean, folks, I'm personally excited about it. By all means, folks, tune in. Find out who it's going to be, and I think you'll be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah,
exactly.
So it, again, from what we've heard from, from Mark Waitman, they're going to do this thing right. I think Cliffy and I think both you and I agree that when John Bowman was here after he announced his retirement, and it was because it was during COVID protocols, etc., he kind of got the shaft in the quote unquote ceremony that he was given.
I wouldn't say it's so much the shaft as it was kind of like it was kind of a meh way of doing it. I mean, yes, he was celebrated and he had a chance to come out one last time and thank everybody and all that, but it didn't have quite that same oomph, that same sort of pomp and circumstance that we've come to expect for moments like this.
I thought you were going to say chutzpah. I thought really that's what you're about to say.
No, not quite. I mean, no, I don't think it would quite fit here, but I have to believe, though, with Mark Waitman, the Alouettes president at the helm, who's always done a great job when it comes to events like this, to celebrate alumni, whether it's a jersey retirement or even just a celebration of a Hall of Fame career or a Hall of Fame worthy career. Mark Waitman gets it. He knows what it's going to take. So I have absolutely no doubt in my mind that this is going to be a fantastic ceremony for these gentlemen, well deserved as well.
Yeah, and they're going to do something. They're going to inviting. This is a big thing when they're going to be inviting fans onto the field to basically greet them as they're coming onto the field. They did this for AC and they did this for Ben, because I remember I was on the field for the one for Ben Cahoon.
Which is still going on, by the way.
Supposedly. I'm looking at my watch now. You're right. The clock's still going.
If you know, you know.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. There's also some other interesting things too. By the way, if you can do this as quick enough as you can and then get back to your seats, you'll be able to watch the ceremony. But starting on Saturday, starting at Saturday's game at halftime, over by the main gate, you as a season ticket member can go pick up your yearly gift, and that will be available starting this Saturday at halftime, and it will continue throughout the season, through the rest of the home games. So that will be available. I think they said it was a cap. So it has nothing's been leaked as of yet to say what it shows, what it looks like yet, bud. And then also, and I know you're a beer guy, dude. Trust me, I know you're a beer guy. What's your thought on what they are dubbing the Corona Nachos glass?
I think it's cool, actually.
I saw it too. It was like, I don't drink Corona. I probably would like Corona. That still looks freaking cool.
It does, and it's just a perfect way to have your beer and your chips and salsa, or chips and queso, as it looked like, based on the promotional photo they showed.
Mm-hmm.
Just another interesting accompaniment, if you will. I mean, just as part of the experience. It's too bad you couldn't do something like this during like Cinco de Mayo or something like that, because obviously, like, well, you're in training camp at that point for Cinco de Mayo.
Mm-hmm.
But I definitely think it's cool. I mean, I would have probably done this a little bit sooner in the summer, like while it was still hot, because I tend to associate Corona with like going down south, like to like the Caribbean for vacation, or down south to Mexico or something like that. Like, it's a hot weather kind of drink. And
Right.
It's not to say it won't be hot and sticky on Labor Day weekend, or still going on to the later games this year, but I think this is something that could have maybe done a little bit sooner in the year to really profit off of it. But still, I think it's a really neat initiative. Again, if you're a fan of Corona and you're a fan of chips and salsa, then this is the way this thing is designed. It's all in one, so you can pretty much do everything with one hand. Like, take a sip of Corona while eating your chips and dunking them in sauce. I mean, my gosh, I mean that's awesome. Like, I mean, it's not the nacho hat that you saw in the Simpsons episode when Homer and Ned Flanders went to a football game. Yeah. That would be awesome. I would love to see that. I mean, you talk about puts in helmets all you want, but a nacho hat, that would be badass. But
you know what, dude? The Owls could still do something like this. They could easily take advantage of this, having somebody eating this when they're promoting this at the game. Okay, show somebody with it, drinking the Corona, eating the nachos and chips, and then playing the Homer, Nacho Man.
I got to be a nacho man.
Take advantage of it. I mean, really.
Definitely.
So,
a classic bit. And sorry to the guys at Piffles Podcast. I know you seem to want to work in a Simpsons reference in every episode, but it's our turn now. So,
did they say how much it was? Because I know you could buy a package where it would be $40 for a seat and the nacho hat. Nacho.
The nacho cup.
The nacho cup. Did they say
how nacho cup?
Yeah. Did they say how much it was?
No, they didn't. I mean, yes, I saw the same thing too. That it'd be a ticket plus that. I have to believe you can buy it separately. So I don't know. I couldn't see it being more than $20, to tell you the truth. I mean, it's just a handful of chips, really, and a Corona. I mean, I know Coronas tend to cost around like anywhere between $11 to $13 by itself.
Well, that's normal in stadium, anyways.
Right. So I mean, if you were to factor in this fancy cup and some chips and salsa or whatever, it's like $8, I think, for nachos at the stadium.
Something like that.
So I'd say it would have to be around the $20 mark. If I were to venture a guess, I'd say around the $20 mark.
Yeah. Have they shown it anywhere else on their social media? Because I know I've been looking for it recently, and I think they had it on their Instagram and potentially on their TikTok, but I haven't seen it anywhere else. I haven't seen it on their regular socials.
Yeah. Well, I guess we're just going to have to find out. I mean, normally I would just be like, buy the Alouettes beer because it's awesome. But now I'm going to have to get a nacho cup.
Yeah, exactly. Now, do you think, and obviously this is something new, and I'm glad they thought of this type of thing, because it is a great promotion. Obviously it's not whatever the weird stuff that Mr. Alfieri was doing by putting it into the helmet itself.
Oh, you mean the peanut butter and Kraft dinner?
Oh, that's what it was. Yes, that's just disgusting.
Love you, Joey, but you're wrong for that. And don't there's no way you could be eating that stuff with a straight face. I mean that you're doing that for clout. Like, come on.
Yeah, he didn't make it. It wasn't a full thing. It wasn't a full thing. There's no way. There's no way. If it is, I want to see the receipts.
I want to see the B-roll of him trying to choke that nonsense down.
Exactly. But do you think this will have the same type of FOMO that the platoon helmet did?
No, but it's still cool.
Oh yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I think if it was Alouettes branded, and I don't think it is. I think it's actually
No,
more Corona
I think
branded.
it's
So
Corona branded. Yeah.
I don't think you're gonna get quite that same. Oh my God, I got to get this kind of thing. But it's still a cool thing to have. It's still trying something new, which I'm all for. And again, it could either sell like gangbusters or could fall flat. We won't know until at least Saturday. So I think it's neat. I don't think it's going to top the puts in helmet because that was truly something special and something that Alouettes fans could really gravitate towards, and something that had the Alouettes logo on it, something that really spoke to it being a football item. So this Nacho Cup doesn't seem to really have that. It just seems like a really, convenient way to be able to have your beer and chips at the same time, which is nice. But I don't think you're gonna get quite that FOMO feeling that you did with the puts in helmet.
Yeah. I might be. Yeah, I might be willing to give a Corona a try. I mean, it's Corona.
For scientific purposes.
Yeah, exactly. The Alouettes are going into this game, Cliff, currently as of DraftKings as a 3.5-point underdog. The total is over under is at 46.5 points. You were saying before that you take away the 3 points that teams we joke around and say that they get for
the
being
hometown bump.
Yeah, the hometown bump. So you're saying it's about 6.5. I'm actually pretty okay with the 3.5 points. I mean, BC lifetime in Montreal is 15-30, but they have split the last 10, which is strange to say. But Owls were going through some tough times, but still,
they sure were. And
it's Vernon Adams' homecoming. It'll be nice to see VA again, just as a player, not necessarily a winning player.
That's it. Yes, we did see him technically last year for the BC Lions. He did go in for a couple of series, but that technically was Antonio Pipkin's game to lose, and lose he did. So that doesn't reflect on Vernon as far as I'm concerned. I mean, and that was still pretty. It was relatively fresh after him being traded to the Lions.
Exactly. I was just about to say that. Also, Yeah, almost initially since after he got traded. So, so I know what you're talking about.
But as I even brought this up before the show too. Like, I don't think VA's ever actually played a full game, like started a game against the Alouettes at Percival Molson Stadium.
I don't think so either. I haven't been able to reach out to CFL stats guru Steve Daniel yet and the stats, the game notes are not out as of yet as we're taping this show. So we'll have to, if we see it in the notes, we'll make sure that either I or the Flight Deck socials will tweet it out. So,
yeah, we do have one instance of Vernon playing against and beating the Alouettes, but that was earlier this year at BC Place. But truthfully, I think a lot of that is just more about the fact that the Alouettes just simply cannot win at BC Place. Plain and simple. I think it's more that. I mean, not to take anything away from Vernon. We'll never take anything away from his ability. I mean, he played an outstanding football game that day, and I have no doubt in my mind he's going to play an outstanding football game this coming Saturday as well. It's just, are the Alouettes going to be able to respond better than what they did out in Vancouver? I think that's going to be the key for this game. Is the Alouettes have to remember they're not at BC Place. They're at Percival Molson Stadium, and they've got to play better football. Certainly a lot better than what they played last week versus the Blue Bombers. I have to believe that motivational factor for both teams, really, because, again, both of them are coming off relatively embarrassing losses. I mean, everybody and their mother thought that the BC Lions were going to walk all over the Tiger Cats, and it was the other way around, whereas the Alouettes got thumped by the Blue Bombers, and they've got to be smarting from that. They've got to be... I hope they're embarrassed. I hope they're pissed off about it, and they end up taking it out on the Lions as a result.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're looking at two teams that, you said it, like this, it's a must-win game in the sense that you want to keep things going. You want to reestablish that momentum that was happening during that 4-game win streak. But BC is equally motivated as well, and they got to keep pace as well. I mean, especially with Winnipeg, essentially they could clinch a playoff spot. The next victory, they're going to clinch a playoff spot. So BC is going to want to maintain. They're firmly in second place now, and they want to make sure they stay that way.
Yeah. Once the depth chart does come out, stay tuned to all of our socials. We'll make sure that we get it out to you guys. Also, again, we want to stress that we want to see you guys at the upcoming fan meetup on Thanksgiving. Stay tuned to our socials also for more information. Any new information that comes about, and obviously you can head to our merch store and buy one of the Cartoon Bird 56 shirts or anything else that's on the site, and you can also use the promo code TGiving23 at checkout for 10% off your entire order.
Mm-hmm. So buy up all the merch, folks. Yeah.
Any last things that you want to mention about the game itself? Anything about who's being inducted? Anything else before we go, buddy?
Definitely, it's going to be interesting seeing John Bowman get properly celebrated, despite the fact that he is actually a member now of the BC Lions coaching staff.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be kind of interesting because he's obviously got a job to do as coach for the Lions, but there's going to be a little part of him that I think is going to be happy to be celebrated again. I mean, he got his flowers, a couple of years ago with the team, but as we discussed, it just felt like it was just kind of there. Whereas this time around, he should be properly celebrated and appreciated for everything he did for Alouettes Nation. And I'm very happy about that. I'm very happy he's going into the Hall of Fame as well. Definitely well deserved. There's absolutely no question about that. But still going to be an interesting wrinkle. Like, okay, I'm being celebrated for everything I did for Montreal, but that's going to happen while I'm wearing BC Lions gear. So that'll be kind of interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
Aside from that, I mean, I look at this team and I look at some of the other teams in this league, and their fan bases are complaining about this, that, and the other. And we don't really have things too bad here in Alouettes Nation. All things considered, I mean, yes, the loss against Winnipeg was a very bitter pill to swallow, just like the loss against the BC Lions at BC Place was a very bitter pill to swallow. And the potential is definitely there for that to happen again, this time at home. But I have to believe the Alouettes are not going to allow that to happen. I have to believe that they were thoroughly embarrassed by what they put out, and it was a team loss. You can't blame it on any one person. They win as a team and they lose as a team, and everybody on this team has to own up for that one. I have to believe, though, at this point, they truly have burned the tape. It's a distant memory at this point, and now they're just focused on the game on Saturday. And truthfully, I think if they come out the way that they have these past few weeks, just ready to go, ready to rock, this defense, I still believe, is, despite losing like a Wesley Sutton and Tyrell Richards, I still think can be very dangerous and is going to make Vernon's life a living hell as best as they can. If they can shut down a lot of these top-notch receivers for the BC Lions, that's going to be key as well. Like, just if you take away this offense, I think Montreal can make this a very competitive affair. And truthfully, if they just got to find a way to win. Simply put, it doesn't have to be pretty. I mean, Lord knows the Alouettes have had some pretty ugly wins this year. Just get the win. Just get back on track, knowing full well after this you've got a home series against the defending Grey Cup champion Toronto Argonauts. And those two games are going to be tough. Even though you played the Argos earlier this year and it was a very competitive and closely played match, you still got to go out there and you got to try and win at least one of these games as well. I mean, if Montreal can come away with a win on Saturday and at least one win versus the Argos, that'll definitely help their confidence. It'll definitely help their standings as well. It'll definitely help a lot of things. I think it'll definitely help reestablish this team as, I mean, I hate to say it, like the best second-tier team in this league. I mean, top tier. I mean, if you want to be considered top tier, you got to beat the top tier teams. Toronto is definitely one of those. So I mean, if you can find a way to beat them, you're gonna all of a sudden be in that conversation. If you beat BC, you're also gonna be in that conversation. Like these are games that simply put have to be won by this team.
Mm-hmm.
I think they know it. I think everybody watching knows it. It's just a matter of they've just got to go out and execute. Simple as that.
Yep, I agree. Make sure you stay tuned to our social to find out when the next episode of Flight Deck Live will be broadcast. We will send out some reminders during the game on Saturday, but usually will be anywhere between about 30-ish minutes after 30 to 45 minutes after the game has completed, and so you'll be able to hear our first thoughts on the game between the BC Lions and the Montreal Alouettes. So we're looking forward to seeing you guys again live to talk about the Alouettes. So other than that, buddy, I'm looking forward to the game. It's gonna be nice to be home again, to see these guys play, and in red. I love those uniforms, and we're just so hoping, fingers crossed, they're going to do that red on blue. Oh, fingers crossed.
Here's hoping. I'm telling you, it's going to be an amazing look. I mean, all red, yeah, that's fine. It's good, but I mean, I really think though the red jersey on the blue pants, that'll pop. Like,
didn't
that'll
they go
get
different for the last game? By the way, the last time when they wore them on the road in Ottawa, they wore blue socks rather than the red socks because they went all mono for the very first game on Canada Day.
Right. So I mean, incorporating a little blue is not a bad thing.
No.
So
let's see it. Let's see it, guys. Make it so.
Make it so.
Make it so. So we appreciate everybody. We hope you guys join us again next week as we talk about the Alouettes and set up the rest of the season. So for everybody here at the Alouettes Flight Deck, for Cliffy D, I'm Tim Capper. We're on Final Approach.